Big round of applause for Susan, guys, for putting together another amazing event. Thank you, everyone, for having me and the entire panel. My name is, yes, Joshua Shelton. I'm a co-founder of Green Street Agency based out of Los Angeles. And before we get into the panel, I just want to say the topic we're talking about is brand. And for me, I'm like honored and inspired to be talking about this topic because, you know, as a young attorney, I was working with I say brands, but guys whose I only knew their first name in my phone because they didn't have a brand. They didn't have logos, they didn't have websites or social media, and they didn't want anybody to know that they were even associated with the product being sold in the stores because it was a gray market and brands didn't exist. And the hyper growth and maturity that I've seen over the last 5 to 7 years is unbelievable. It's inspiring to see the success the companies have built and the brands and the culture. And really what a brand is trust. It's the consumer being able to connect with your brand and trust that your product is something that they can consume and value, and that's something I'm seeing more and more every day. So it's exciting to be a part of that. And I'm going to welcome our panel to the stage, and let me introduce everybody, and then we get a warm welcome for everybody. It would be fantastic. Mr. Tim Morland, with Compliance and Policy Director of River Wellness. Ryan Smith, founder of Leaflink. Meghan Phillips, the owner of the Honey Agency. Dean Reyes, artist manager of C3 Management. And Amber Center, CEO of Leisure Life. Please help me give them a warm welcome to the stage. We have microphones for you guys. Awesome. And this is all our first time meeting, so it's great to meet everybody. And I hate that I'm standing up here. Like, I'd rather just be with you guys, but here we go. Anyway, so we're going to just jump into a few topics. We're going to do a little bit of a conversation with the panel over a few topics. I'd love everybody, I think will provide some value to us as an industry, some information and some education. And then we're going to open it up because really I think what everybody is here to do is, if you're not a leader already, is to become a leader in this industry, understand what that takes, and I assume that your brains are full of a ton of questions that we are hopefully here to be able to answer. So let's start off with our first topic, which, you know, I think in our industry, I've worked with a lot of people that, because they've only worked in the cannabis industry, they feel like they are inventing or creating certain aspects of their business, whether it had been extraction or distillation or a certain type of processes within their company. The cannabis industry is, doesn't have a lot of perspective from outside because it's self-made millionaires within the industry. So one of the things I think our panel can help us with today is applying some of the history and trends of other industry, parallel industries, and what types of things have made brands successful in industries like fashion, music, sports, apparel. So let's talk about that a little bit. I want to open it up to the panel, maybe start with on this end and work this way as we see fit.
Well, thank you, Susan, for inviting us today. Thank you for all being here. I feel like I have the privilege every day of working with wine, coffee, tea, and consumer products. And cannabis is an amazing opportunity for us to take what we can learn from other industries, but also remind ourselves that we have the respect of a lot of farmers, and we have to make sure that farmers are still at the forefront of what we do. And so every day, that's my job. It's agriculture. We're talking about an agricultural product, and I think it's an honor to be able to work in that. So that's been what I've been doing. Brands are one of those moments where you break bread. And we have the honor of being panelists on this, but when you are selling something that you can enjoy as a community and a communal event, where you do break bread, it becomes a different experience. It is not just a product, it is something that unites people, and it's something that unites a lot of people. And so that sort of branding is really hard and really interesting because it's not just a widget, it's not just a cog, it's actually a very memorable experience. And I think that's something that's even harder in branding because we're taking something that's very, very passionate for a lot of people, and it's something we consume, it's something we put in our bodies, and I think that's pretty awesome.
Definitely agree on the cultural elements. So one of the co-founders, Ryan Smith at Leaflink, and we work with over 700 brands, more than 2,300 retailers now in 12 states. And one of the primary bets we made when we started the company was that this industry would be similar to, as it matures, a lot of other industries, right? Consumers looking for consistency, same pricing, things that feel comfortable to them, especially if they're new to the market. And over the last 2.5, 3 years since we started the company, we went from meeting with our first clients that were running these, middle 8-figure businesses on whiteboards, text messages, Google Sheets, to saying, well, asking basic questions. What was your most sold product yesterday? oh, we think it was this, kind of these subjective answers. It was the drink. And then we're starting to see now more of this professionalism, maturity around these businesses as they grow. We build tools for that. I think that's what clients at the end of the day want to see the results of. So there's definitely quickly growing, which is exciting to be a part of.
Good morning. Thanks again, Susan, for having us here today to talk about branding. So I can actually, I'm going to talk about branding from a different perspective. I can talk about products. We manufacture a product that's infused. It's infused popcorn. But I'm also the co-founder of Supernova Women, which is an organization that works to empower people of color to become self-sufficient shareholders within the cannabis industry. And I bring up that brand because that brand was something that we were able to create and create a movement behind it. And it's been a very powerful experience, just kind of speaking to needs within the community and getting people to rally behind us. So, of course, you can build consumer brands and things like that, but when you build a movement behind whether it's a product or a need within the industry or an industry need, you can see a really exponential growth behind that. So, yeah, movements behind brands.
Hey everybody, my name's Dean Reyes. I'm an artist manager at C3 Management. I come from the music side. I've been working in cannabis for a couple of years now, advising cannabis companies on branding, strategy, marketing, design, packaging. At C3, we produce music festivals and manage artists. We produce Lollapalooza in 8 countries, Bonnaroo, Austin City Limits, and we manage about 65 bands. The Strokes, The Head and the Heart, Sylvanesso, Justice, Phoenix, Grammatic, and several others. And so I've been kind of coming into the cannabis space the last couple of years, starting with Revolution as a reggae band I've managed for 10 years. We partnered with FlavorX a couple of years ago to release some cartridges and disposable pens, so that was kind of my entry into the cannabis space, and kind of looked around and saw that a lot of the branding and a lot of the products kind of all looked very similar. And something that I've been trying to do is normalization in branding and making sure that when a cannabis that my family and other people that are not your traditional and maybe newcomers to cannabis can feel comfortable with their consumption, and that they don't have to hide it, and that the branding is looks very similar to other products such as a can of beer or a bottle of whiskey, and that it's just making sure that it's fine, that it sits on the coffee table, and that if somebody wants to consume cannabis as opposed to drinking alcohol. And so that was kind of what I'm going for in that space, is making people feel comfortable about the consumption. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's healthier than some other products. So I just felt like a lot of the branding was kind of counterintuitive to that process. So I've been focusing a lot on that and having some fun, and happy to be here.
My name is Tim Morland. I am the Compliance and Policy Director for River Distributing, a large distribution company here in California. My background comes from, I'm on the compliance side. My background comes, I was a legislative director for Fiona Ma, who's speaking soon. Go Fiona, she's running for treasurer, vote for her. Sorry, I gotta get my plug. And before that, I worked for the State Assembly for probably about it's almost 8 years. So my focus right now with marketing and with brands has been on the compliance angle, which, as we probably all know, that's been really tough. We've had some major deadlines, the July 1st, the grace period. We have another deadline coming for branding and labeling and packaging with the proposed regs that will go into effect. To be honest with you guys, there are brands that are not on the shelves of retailers right now because of labeling and packaging. And this is a huge issue. This is something we fight every day at River. We try and work with our brands and help them and give them the blueprint to what they need to do to get their products on the shelves, because we want to do that. We want to sell that. It has been a constant battle, and we're going to continue to fight it. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm sure we'll talk about this more during the panel. So
Awesome. Well, it's great to meet everybody, and I think that gives us some perspective on some of the Q&A questions coming up soon. Our next topic I want to talk about here, rather than just the parallels on the mainstream, is, have a plan. Most of the early companies we've worked with were kind of shooting from the hip and creating a plan as they went. And I'd love to just pose it to the panel. What are some of the essential elements you guys think are necessary for a company when putting together a go-to-market or a yearly marketing strategy plan? And let's start from that end. Maybe Tim and Dean, you guys can kick us off.
I mean, once again, guys, I'm going to go on my compliance angle. When you're a brand, you need to figure out exactly what needs to be on that packaging so you can sell it. That's step one. Work with your legal counsel, work with your distributor. If you have a good distributor, I'm sorry, I'm kind of bragging, but they're going to help you out with your labeling and making sure that's compliant, and they'll work with you. I spend a good portion of my day working with brands and just advising them on what's compliant labeling. So start out there, and that's my 2 cents on this, and I'll let all these pros here jump in.
I would say, figure out at the core what your story is. Who are you? What are you about? Where do you come from? What is going to be that emotional connection between you and your audience and your brand and your marketing and your design and your social media and your photos and, your articles, and what is your story? Don't just be, figure out at the core, like, who are you? Why are you doing this? Where do you want to go? And build a connection and try to find an audience that agrees with that, and give consumers something that they can connect to, that they feel a loyalty towards your product, whether it be, a cause, who are you giving back to? What organizations are you supporting? Or, what's your sustainability angle? What good are you doing? As well as, where is your product coming from? Tell the consumers everything about you, because they're going to find out and you want them to know. So don't just, go deeper. Go deeper. Try to find something emotional or something meaningful in there without just throwing, a product into the marketplace and expecting people to want to buy it. There's so many products, and people's attention spans are so quick that if they don't like yours, they're going to click to something else and go somewhere else. Try to draw people in with something meaningful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Dean. I think it's one of the most important things. And a company we all know and probably have a device in our pocket from, which is Apple, their early mission statement was about the why, right? It's not to make great cell phones and sell a lot of product. It was to make devices that make communication easier for human beings. And I something along that lines. I'm paraphrasing. But then it was, okay, in order to accomplish that, why? We're going to make tablets and cell phones and reinvent all of these devices in order to do that. And that was really the story and the reason behind it, and why people got behind every product that Apple brings, is because they connect with the why of the company. And I think it's tremendously important.
Yeah, I just want to build on what Dean mentioned as well. Telling your story is essential, and connecting with your audience is key. So making sure that the visuals on your packaging, the imagery that you choose, and marketing your product, whether it be on social media or on a billboard, that it connects with your audience and who you're trying to target, and all of that, and also be genuine. Be very genuine and be transparent. People want to know where their cannabis is coming from. They want to know what they're putting into their bodies. People really want transparency nowadays, and that's why the farm-to-table movement is so huge and had such success.
And people are smart.
Yeah, people
right? They're smart.
We have smart consumers. We have the internet. We have information within the palm of our hands that we can access right away. So, and all of that also plays into building the movement behind your product. If you can do this successfully, you can get a lot of people on your side. And once you have a customer for life, that person's going to tell everybody about your product. So, yeah, just be genuine, be real, connect with your audience, and yeah.
I just want to add something real quick. Sorry, to what I was saying doesn't only pertain to like physical products. If you're a grower, your brand is who you are and how you're growing. Tell people the nutrients that you're doing. Tell people what you're doing. Tell people where you're selling to. If you're a distributor, you have a brand. This is what we do. This is how we take care of people. It's not, I don't mean brands just in terms of like a jar of flour on a shelf. I mean like everything about your company. If you are, anything within the industry, you have a brand, you have a story. You have an audience, whether your audience is B2B or B2C or if it's consumers or if it's other professionals, everybody's paying attention. So don't take for granted that people just know stuff about you. Try to make sure that that you're telling who you are and why you're doing what you're doing.
I think it's a great point. Like when a lot of the companies on our platform, so we work with some leading brands like Kiva in California, Wana in Colorado, Zoots up in Washington, but there really isn't yet a national leader. There's no Coke, no Pepsi.
Yep.
People like market caps might say otherwise, but that's just that's just today. What we are seeing is a lot of companies are pretty small and they're looking to scale and getting to other markets. And I think some of the mistakes that we're seeing happen is we have companies that launch in Michigan or will launch in Colorado because they work with us in Oregon. And a lot of these are startups, right? Everyone is a startup to a varying degree. And the eyes get really big. We want to be craft, so we have to be everywhere. And if you, in the more internal operational side, haven't really set what your mission, what your goal is, how you should be known as, it's a business, right? It has to be operating at a certain level of efficiency with accountability and transparency to actually be successful. And so we're seeing mistakes like people jumping into these shotgun marriage JVs in other states to meet residency requirements and just to get live. And what's happening is if you only have a team of 10 to 30 people in state 1 and you want to be in state 2 and 3 in the next 6 months, things just start getting so sloppy. And so forget about the beauty of the packaging or the mission that the end consumer sees. If you can't keep it straight internally and have a consistency of who you are as a team and a company, forget about, being, it's really through and through from what we've seen.
Yeah, coming from the creative side, I think we get a phone call every single week and it's, I need a logo. And I say, you gotta rephrase your question. Because it's not about, a brand is so much more than a logo, a brand is so much more than a package, a brand has like many, many multifaceted prongs, and it's really important that that brand strategy, that written word, is completed first before you ever put ink to paper. Don't get me wrong, I love putting ink to paper. It's what I get up in the morning and do. I wanna create, I wanna make design, I wanna create a package that's gonna be unforgettable that you wanna bring and share at, with your friends. I want it to be The biggest thing also is it needs to resonate. I just came back from Denver, Kat, Joe, we were all in Denver for the past couple days, and 6 years have passed, and I still think the net was cast really wide, and it was cast by a category called cannabis. It wasn't cast by a resonating, audience-driven why. I think that that's a moment here in California where we can expedite what that process looks like by thinking of brand strategy first. So instead of looking at a big net that's being cast and we're all going out into cannabis, we're actually targeting a person on the other end who wants to resonate with the product, that believes in something that is bigger and beyond. And I think that that's really important. So think beyond a logo, think beyond package, think about the strategy first, and really make yourself stand out and be different and be authentic. Because if that happens, you will pull out from the crowd. I will tell you, going to Denver, there was only a few people that really stood out to me. And it was just all very similar and homogenized. And I think that if you saw real brand strategy, you knew immediately and it popped off the shelf. And it maybe even sometimes wasn't their package. Maybe it was the way it was merchandised. Maybe it was for that patient who needed to open that child-resistant package differently. That's the innovation we have in California right now, and we have a really big chance to do it right.
Totally agree. And so we keep hitting on packaging, right? And it's become, and I remember back in a day when the retailer that I worked with retailer, didn't even have packaging. You'd have to bring your own baggies. To now, we have the most sophisticated packaging, I think, in almost any industry with some of the childproofing that exists. How important is it? What do we need to consider? How expensive is it? How much should a company be contributing into its packaging design and utility? Let's throw that one. Go ahead. Yeah, you seem excited.
Sorry, I can talk about this because what I have a lot of, I feel your pain because we can't design against it right now because we don't know exactly where it's going to go. So I do feel the pain of the industry because we cannot create the package yet based on where the regs are. We don't know where that child-resistant mark is going to land. With that said, I think that's also a mistake that's happening right now with brands, is they're thinking like they're pulling back and waiting because they're just like, I'm not going to invest in my brand yet because I don't know where child resistance is going to go. You're going to lose. You have to come out strong with your brand and still feel like I'll be able to pivot when I know what the regs are going to look like. So that's just something I want to say, is I see too much of this pullback of people being like, I don't know what my brand looks like yet. And it's like, your brand isn't your package. Like, don't stress. But I feel your pain because we don't know where that's going.
Sorry, I don't mean to upset the order.
No, jump in.
But please, whatever you do, if you're a brand, do not wait for the regulations to drop. Just act like you're under the regs you are now, and it has to be in child-resistant packaging. Because if you're not, and they do take out that requirement, guess what? Can't sell your product. You're going to be waiting to find packaging, and that could take months. I have brands right now. River represents 30 brands. I have brands right now who haven't been able to secure packaging, and that's the only reason why they are not sitting on shelves of retailers right now or being sold to.
Are you guys seeing more
consumers.
packaging locally or from abroad? Is that part of the delay?
Mainly from abroad? I mean,
Yep.
To be honest, a lot of it's just Chinese packaging.
Yep.
So, and I don't know how the tariffs are going to affect that. So there's a whole host of issues, but just be proactive. I think the child-resistant standards or the child-resistant packaging will be placed on the retailers ultimately, just kind of following what's going on in Sacramento. But be prepared. Be prepared if it's not, because if you're not, we can't sell your product.
Have a little bit of wiggle room with not knowing what was going to happen with the regulations. I went out and bought a $10,000 Epson printer, label printer, so we would have the flexibility to be able to print in-house no matter what regulations change tomorrow. Okay, we go print. So yeah, just be smart about it and invest. Don't invest 10 grand in pre-printed packaging and the regs change in 6 weeks. Make sure you have some flexibility.
And sorry to jump in again, don't think you're going to fool a retailer, because they're pretty smart right now. They refuse products, even product that's compliant, because they are seriously nervous about taking product that the BCC is just going to pull off the shelf during an inspection. So everyone's paying attention. Distributors are paying attention. I pay attention. I have to send back product every day because someone tried to get cute and place it in a bag that's technically not child resistant, or they didn't put the proper labels on, they didn't put the universal symbol in the front of the product if it's a manufactured product. There's all sorts of little nuances that we simply just can't distribute your product. These are big. I have retailers who will turn down products. Like flour is a perfect example. Technically, flour is not a manufactured cannabis good, and it really doesn't need the universal symbol, because CDPH regs don't govern flour. However, retailers are freaking out about it when there is a universal symbol on the back, but it's in a different color. And they're simply trying to refuse this product, so I have to get on the phone with the retailer, and we have to go back and forth, and then I have to dig up emails from CDPH saying that's not required for flour, and it's this long process. So I guess what I'm saying is just make sure you're dialed in. You're not going to fool anybody. You're not going to fool anybody by, this is get cute, I'll just place it over here. But you have to really follow those guidelines that the state's giving you.
I think it's a cool opportunity at the same time, right? Because there's one brand I'm thinking of in California that we went to visit their facility a few months back, and they had half of it was just packaging that they way over purchased, and they knew it was going to be beyond even, if we weren't going to be operating by a grace period or hoping for another one, this is what was going to be compliant in the very least. And we released new badges now on Leaflink that you can be a compliant product. People are asking and looking for it. But there was a whole like methodology to releasing this compliant packaging, which kind of keys into some retailers are smart, but there's still like a lot of lack of communication in the supply chain, and especially between buyers and sellers and regulators. So they not only pre-bought all their packaging more than they were going to need for the next 6, 12 months, but they also had a whole like educational one sheets that went in with all the deliveries, and they educated their sales reps to explain this is what you can and cannot buy, and here's why, because there's a lot of ideas and there's granularity to those ideas and what's okay and what isn't okay. So it's almost like launching a product in a new product that people aren't quite yet familiar with, and companies that did that seem to be, we could see their transactions on the platform far and away, where others are really almost at a standstill. They're sitting on millions of dollars of product, kind of like what we were alluding to earlier.
Yeah, so one of our recurring themes of the panel is the regulation surrounding all of the marketing and branding, right? So, and it's the first time in our industry, at least here in California, that we've ever had to deal with these types of threat of losing your license. So I want to segue here into the don't lose your license conversation. And what are a few things, in addition to obviously compliant packaging and everything being compliant, what are some pitfalls in just the overall compliance area that brands should be aware of, whether it's marketing to minors or children or caricatures or packaging? Let's talk about a few of those areas.
I mean, one of the issues that I dealt with when I first came to River was marketing to children. I literally looked through all of our SKUs, looking for names. Had to unfortunately tell a lot of brands, you can't use the word candy.
And what is that, sorry to cut into, but to you guys, what is your interpretation? Because it's not 100% where you can and can't market, it's marketing to children is kind of the general term. What does that mean to River?
What does that mean to River? I mean, we're just overly cautious. We don't want, we look at these brands, we looked at the packaging. This really isn't too big of an issue right now, but when I first came there, we were really with a fine-tooth comb going through these brands and looking at them and looking for keywords, looking for cartoon figures and stuff like that. It was kind of silly, but it's actually something that we had to do because once again, we want to sell these brands, but we can't sell them, when they have a certain names in there. That a lot of candies, and it's very explicit in the regs. You can't use the word candy on your packaging. You can't. And then as far as what's like appealing to children, I really don't know. So we kind of had to take kind of a conservative approach because no offense to the state, but there's really no guidelines on, they just say it and there's this kind of like, oh, you interpret it and there's just nothing there. So that's been an issue.
Copyright infringement is a real thing. So, don't make a candy bar that looks like a Hershey bar and call it Stoner Bar.
Yeah, real companies are coming in, and that's something that, as Tim kind of mentioned, I've seen a lot of cleaning up in the last year or two of, variations of Disney properties or Marvel properties or Star Wars, and that was, I think, something that early on a lot of brands would attract to and had these limited runs, and I think that's a pitfall, at least at this point, because a lot of the big boys are starting to step up and their IP departments are laboring litigation all across the industry.
And from an advertising standpoint, as we all know, we cannot take out, anything that's federally, FCC. There's no advertising for television, radio. So what actually is kind of unique about this is you get to drive a language in an organic fashion. And I think what we need to look at is making sure that brands are very connected with the end consumer through training and through connecting with their retailers, and to make sure that they're educating and changing and driving the message about their brand to the bud tenders even. And I think that that's really important. When I think about alcohol and coffee, there's a lot of trainings that are coming from the brands. The distributors are going and they're meeting and they're saying this is how you administer the product. This is what the product is. This is the farmer that grew it. And that's an opportunity to kind of do the advertising in a very internal way, while we still have a lot of sort of requirements where we can't advertise our brand. Social media, you can't, I know we're going to get into that, but that's another amazing place for you to drive your why. You get to drive the message, you can connect and talk to the right people that you want to have resonate with your brand and your product. It is an amazing tool right now that can be used to grow a very loyal following. And I think it's really important that that's addressed and looked at.
Yeah, I think let's jump into, sorry, Tim, but let's just jump into social media now because, as I've watched the industry grow, and I think it's been more of a community rather than an industry up until this point, social media has been a platform that was readily used by everyone. And I'd say like the cannabis industry runs on Instagram essentially, right? Despite the fact that we can't advertise, people are touchy, accounts are shut down every other day. It's the same as like the bank accounts have always been. So despite that does the cannabis industry run on Instagram and social media? How does our panel feel that brands should be activating, and where should they use it, and what are good strategies for using social media and other mainstream media channels?
I think email is a great way to connect with an audience, as long as you're not over-emailing and pissing people off, because a lot of people do that, or texting. But, you know, I think everybody should be wary about what platform that you're building your audience, because whose audience is still on MySpace? Nobody's. You know, those social media companies could go away, or they could, you know, things could change. So don't just, you know, build your audience on Facebook or Instagram. You know, use them to reach an audience, but really try to collect emails, and really try to, you know, build in-person experiences with people and connections, because, you know, those platforms could go away.
And what types of mainstream platforms are you guys utilizing, or that you see at all, whether it be radio or television or ads in print and magazines? Like, what have you guys seen be effective for the brands that you guys work with?
So I was a former COO of Magnolia Wellness, which is a dispensary in West Oakland. And I think we were probably the first dispensary to have a billboard on 580, which coming from San Francisco going into Oakland. And we had that billboard up for 4 years. And we saw a lot of success from that billboard, mainly because we were the only dispensary in the state that had a billboard. And it was kind of expensive, but it paid off. You know, we were able to kind of track our return on investment by seeing who was coming in, signing up, and how they found out about us. Did you find out about us through Weed Maps, billboard, what was it? And so the billboard was cool. We also did a TV commercial, which was really expensive. I think we're one of the only dispensaries that did a TV commercial too. And I don't think our return on investment was very good there. But it was cool. They would show our commercial during SVU at night. And but print seems to be good. But you know, I do agree with Dean here about collecting emails, because that's something that you will always have, whereas all the other platforms could go away. You will always have a way to connect with the audience through email.
I think a lot of the main outlets, or the ones that are industry leaders, are pretty underwhelming, at least on the metrics that they give back on advertisements. Click-through rates and impressions are usually pretty pathetic, and then at times there are these very, like, what we call like V1 tech companies in the space doing pretty predatory advertising regimes. So there's that side, and there's limitations around where, like, even getting access to billboards or like public TV is challenging. The nice part is that the industry is so small and the community is pretty tightly knit that when people ask, like, how do we get to 2,300 retailers? How do we have over 350 in California? Because we're knocking on everyone's doors. I mean, you could spend a few weeks and pretty much meet everyone you need to meet in this space, and people talk, and it's very communal. So you may not have all these quick, sexy methods of getting everyone's eyeballs, but you could pretty much get everyone's bodies in a room pretty quickly and meet them in the old school, old-fashioned way. So that's a good thing that we've done.
And I just want to say, everyone in this room is here because we're probably an authority on something, or we have a voice in cannabis. And we need all of our voices to be the advertisers. And so I always tell people, please, like, be right. Go and say you'll do an op-ed, talk to media, connect with influencers who are probably not in cannabis to sort of change the tone, and to get more people that are not even thinking of cannabis as something that they should have as a budget line item and a purchase in their, you know, in their household, to think of it as something that they can bring into their household. And that's sort of the thing that I want to say, is that we need to get more communal connectivity and media to be talking about it and writing great articles about brands that are doing it well, cultivations that's doing it well, and that's our job, to really raise voices together.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, you know, from River's perspective, we have a team of 23 sales managers who go out around the state and sell the product. But the brands that work with our sales folks are the ones who succeed. The brands who do the ride-alongs with us, who go out and promote their own product with our team, the brands that show up to our sales meetings and educate our sales associates about the brands and the benefits and the message they all want to convey and the story about the brand. That is so important. Just getting out there. Yes, social media and print and all that's great, but just getting out there and preaching your message and advertising your brand. Those are the brands that River we really do well with. It's when they play an active part with us. Yes, we have the team, we have the foot soldiers, so to speak, to go out there and sell the product, but it's the brands who actually step and get away and advertise their products themselves in conjunction with us. They do well.
Yeah, hard work wins, right?
Yeah, it's going to take time. It's going to take a long time. You're not set up to be able to get mass media coverage, and there are a lot of limitations on the marketing. If you want to have a brand of any sort, you're going to have to go out there on the road, foot soldier, go and make connections one by one. There is no launch a product and immediately you've got a following and you're selling 10,000 units and it's going to take a long time. So make sure you're managing your expectations and the expectations of the people that you're working with, and really put in the effort and put in the time and be really passionate about it, because people can see that and they can read it too.
I want to say one more thing. So when I moved to California 4.5 years ago, I worked for an edibles company with actually Beer Brothers. Those two guys in the back. And they were my sales team here in LA, and I was working up north. And we took that brand, that edibles company, from 4 dispensaries to 50 dispensaries in 6 months. And we did that because we were on the ground going from dispensary to dispensary, talking to folks. We didn't depend on, it's great to have River as a distributor or a distribution company, but you've really, as the brand, got to go out and do your own work and build those relationships.
Yeah, I think the point here is that the industry is still young enough and still small enough that you could start a company tomorrow, work hard, and still play among the biggest in the game here, and that's available. Yeah, right? Come on. I think this industry is the epitome of the American dream. I've seen more self-made millionaires than any other industry I've ever worked in, so that's why I say that. But we're hitting here a lot on the issues of the limitations of advertising and marketing, right? Advertising is a part of having a brand. Where do we advertise and pay for ads and get the word out there? Because social media is limited, Instagram, Google, Facebook, that's where everybody else in the world advertises and spends millions of dollars. We can't do it. I think we've seen a turn in cannabis to a lot of influencer or celebrity branded marketing, right? So there's been some good ones, there's been some bad ones, there's been how do we use celebrity influencers, how do we use just influencers on the gram, the guys who have 20, 40, 50,000 followers as well. I just want to throw that on the table and let's get a little topic going there.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to the celebrity branded products. I've launched a couple, I've been paying a lot of attention. Time will tell if it works. If people care. It's difficult enough to have a product on a shelf, especially in the state of California, period, than to now slap a celebrity logo on it, charge a little bit more, and actually have that work. Yes, it's going to help because that celebrity has a pre-existing following and an audience already, but who's to say that if, we won't use any names, but we'll say Celebrity X has a huge following, and they go and they partner with a farm or a manufacturer or something, and they end up getting a product on the shelf. If their fans or their audience walk into that dispensary and they see that the product is at a higher price point because there are more, the pie has to be cut more ways, but the product isn't that good, and it's not as good as a much better product that's next to it on the shelf that's cheaper. I don't care if you're the biggest fan of Celebrity X in the world, you're not buying that product more than once. And it becomes a novelty item, and the problem is that it ends up being brand depreciating. Because the fan and the loyal follower of that celebrity will go into the store and look at it and get pissed off and go, what are you doing? You're trying to sell me a product that's not as good, that's more expensive, and you're just trying to cash grab, and you obviously haven't paid attention to the product. You're not really a huge fan of it, and then that ends up being depreciating to the celebrity or the musician or the band or whatever. So, I think everybody needs to be a little bit careful about what kind of products that they're putting out there, and people, really need to make sure that it's legitimate, because it could land up backfiring on you.
So I want to piggyback on that. That's a great point. River, we distribute Cheech and Chong. I like to joke around. So we got both of them. And you're exactly right. It's about the quality of the product. Yeah, sure, it's a novelty. Like Cheech and Chong, it's great product. We sell it all the time, only because it's great product. And that's why we have a team that goes out there and makes sure it's actually good product, actually good flour. Because we know that it's just simply not going to sell. Yeah, it might sell right away, and it's going to be a short time thing. But that's definitely one to piggyback on that point as a distributor who actually carries to brands for celebrities. So.
Yeah, I think what they bring to the table is attention, right? You get a flash, a look this way at your company, and they're encouraging an experience. And if that experience is not through the roof, people are for sure not going to be paying a premium. I think that's a mistake that brands make, is charging the extra 20% over their standard thing to cover the licensing deal that they just struck. Consumers won't pay it. They know they can get the cheaper name of your brand version and not the shiny package with the gold trim, and it's the same product inside. So I completely agree on that. And I think it works to apparel. It depreciates the brand. It depreciates the celebrity or the influencer involved. I think the net result is that they've lost money all the way around the envelope, because it's expensive to bring brands. It's expensive to do new packaging. It's expensive to do photo shoots and coordinate social media content and do all these things that most of the brands in this industry are just brand new at getting. So they strike up one of these expensive deals, pay a large guarantee up front, and it's more high fives and pictures, at least I've noticed, than actual value and ROI in the relationships.
Yeah, it's not as cut and dry as just creating a product and putting it on the shelf. I think everybody in here knows how difficult that is and how to bring a product to market. And I think, if the celebrity isn't like fully endorsing and marketing the hell out of that product, dispensaries are going to go, why am I carrying this product? The celebrity isn't even marketing it and endorsing it. And then, you've got issues with distribution and sales teams and people that are just trying to cash in and put products on the shelf that they don't actually use, that aren't authentic to the brand. Dispensaries start asking questions, and they'll say like, well, you just played a show in the city. Why didn't you guys come in and do meet and greets? With Revolution, we've placed a big focus on actually going into the stores and doing signings and doing giveaways and marketing the product and posting videos and talking about it, because the band actually really does use and love the product, and that comes across. And I think that people can see that there is an actual connection, where they're not just trying to slap their name on something and call it a day and hope that dispensaries order the product and that sales teams sell the product. So I think, I think that's been an issue too, but it's also, we have seen it work for us, because dispensaries are very open to something like that, and it's something special. If Revolution just played 2 nights at Red Rocks in Colorado, and we went into the clinic, and they sat down and they did a table and they did a signing, and everybody who comes in got a raffle to get tickets to a sold-out show. And I think dispensaries appreciate that. I think the fans can see that the band actually loves and supports the product, and they're more inclined to support it too.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing to hit on, is that the band or the celebrity, the influencer, whoever it is, needs to love and support the product. And I think it's less about slapping that name on the product and their followers knowing that they love and support something. Because that they want to participate and they want to enjoy the things that the people that they idolize and that they think are the culture tastemakers, they want to participate in the things that those people love and participate in, not something that has their face on it. Right? I mean, and that's something that's been traditionally proven in, I think, other mainstream music, fashion, apparel industries. And now that it's coming over to cannabis, I think we had a flush of put your face on it kind of brands and really generic products, and we're seeing that that's not something that's been effective. And I think we're going to start seeing more of a generalized brand that is supported by a collective of these influencers that will be more effective long term.
And I just want to touch on the fact that you don't need to think about your brand like this. And I think that we can look at other industries. You can have multiple products within your portfolio that are going to be beyond, they're going to be tiered. There's going to be some that are like limited edition. You've poured your heart and soul into it. Maybe it does have somebody it's endorsed by. Then think of it, look at your portfolio and say, well, I want that shelf space up at the top, and I want to have that beautiful high-end product that I maybe spent a lot more time curating, or it has a little bit more, sort of something unique to it, and then have your space in the middle where it's, hey, you might be targeting multiple consumers, but do it in a way that resonates and has a story behind it. There should be a reason why it's on that top shelf, and there should be a reason why that you have another piece of portfolio that's taking that bottom. I mean, not to do it back to the alcohol industry, but you go into Safeway and there's 3 people in that game. And they figured out ways to create brands that are sitting on multiple shelf spots. And I think that's one thing that I want to say is look at retail. Look at what retail's doing and what retail wants. The biggest thing that's going to happen is if you don't have shelf space now, you're not going to get it in a year. Because that shelf space will be filled, and if they're doing it right, there's no one else they're not going to take that brand off and put another brand on. So fill that shelf space and do it in ways that are creating a lot of value at each place.
Yeah, and that's something we see with brands. Everyone wants a high-end brand. That's all they want to do. That's great. That's really great. But, using the supermarket analogy, you're going to want your Budweiser. You're going to want your Sierra Nevada. You're going to want some of those, low to mid to high-grade products. And you want to diversify your portfolio as a brand. Otherwise, you're not going to command that shelf space. And the shelf space issue, I could go on for days seeing that as a distributor. That's been an interesting challenge for distributors and brands, because you have some places in the state who some retailers are saying, you have to pay me X amount of dollars to buy this shelf space. And this goes on in the liquor industry as well. Actually, it's been outlawed in the liquor industry. But you pay me X amount of dollars to put this on my shelf, and I can sell it. And with no guarantees, like, they're going to push your brand or anything like that. So that's something as brands and as distributors, we need to have an honest discussion about. Sorry, retailers, I may be making you mad right now, but that's one of the issues we've kind of been dealing with.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, is look to the retailers. In almost every other industry in the world, the retailers are the one that determine size of package, type of product, how many are sold together. They report back to the distributor. The distributor tells the manufacturers, guys, this is what works at a retail level and this is how it's selling. This is the product you need to make. And a lot of other industries, the retailer simply won't take product, which means the distributor won't buy it from the manufacturer unless it meets their certain criteria to encourage the most efficient sales in the store. So the retailers are eventually, and it's underrated now, but you're starting to see retailers sell the shelf space and understand their equity in the game. It's going to be the determining factor on what product is endorsed by a bud tender or somebody in the store level and what actually gets sold. So with that, guys, let's give a big round of applause for our panel. That was fantastic. That's going to conclude our question area. And I wanted to just open up here. We got about 15, 20 minutes of question and answers, whatever you guys would like to answer. And if you just want to stand up or point, yep, perfect. Please. Oh, yeah, okay, so we actually have a microphone up here. I'm uneducated on the process. But there's a microphone up here. If you want to come up and line up, you please take your time and make your way up.
Thank you. Hopefully it is okay that I can say I don't really have a question, and I got here a little late, so I apologize for not getting your name. What's your name?
Joshua.
No, I'm sorry, her.
Oh, her.
Meghan.
Yeah, Megan. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to elaborate on something that you stated from, the target segmentation and everything that is really important. I come from the media, marketing, advertising background, and I just wanted to kind of expand a little bit that, yes, that is definitely what brands and products need to do, is to really look at, a strategic target segmentation. But I also think that in addition to that, the market research is also very important. Understanding the market trends in the category that you're in, what percentage that they're kind of, I just asked him if I couldn't ask a question. Okay, but I was just saying, as well as competitive,
that's
analysis
such a great
and
point.
so forth, that it is really important to understand, and you guys were talking about in terms of, the aisle and so forth. The competitive analysis and information is just very important for brands to make sure how they can also play in the same sandbox.
I completely agree, when we look at brands in other industries, coffee, wine, commodity products that we work in, we have data. We know that person who is 35 years old in San Francisco loves herself a Pinot Noir. We don't have that yet. We're going to get there, but the fact that we're not data collecting there is a lot of security and things at the dispensary level, it's going to be a challenge. So back to what Dean said, you have to control the end consumer. Get their email, talk to them, because you're not going to get it from anywhere else. There's no way that you're going to get that information right now, at least. So really try to get as much and gather as much information about who's buying your product, because that's the only way we're going to do it. But thank you. That was such a very good point.
I just want to elaborate on the collecting emails. I'm sure everybody knows, but just in case, an easy way to do that is to just put a email sign-up form on your website. Right as the website pops up, chances are it's going to say, "Are you 21 and over?" Yes. Have the email website up there when you're going in and you're doing in dispensary demos. Have an email sign-up sheet and just say, "Hey." Someone comes up like, "Oh, I love this product. It really helped my back." Cool. Sign up. Give us your email address, and the next time we launch a new product, you'll get it first. Or the next time we're coming back to, Santa Ana at the From the Earth dispensary, you'll know first, and you can come in and you can, check us out and give us your email, and we'll give you discount codes, and we'll, run a contest on your website and say, sign up for our email, and we'll give you, 15% off your next order of whatever the product is. Be creative, give people incentives, but technically that's the way. You can go to companies like MailChimp, and they have software that allows you to import all of the email addresses that you've collected and then easily export and send out an email with whatever you want to design or put on there.
I just need to make an announcement. I know a lot of people in the room have PTSD, myself included. They're going to do a fire alarm check in a few minutes. So when you hear a loud noise, don't worry, it's going to stop, and we're just going to keep rolling, because that's what we do.
I wondered if you could comment on maybe some less direct marketing things that companies can be doing. Something I really appreciate is having like a longer term vision with it, and education programs and sponsorship, where it's not necessarily directly trying to sell a brand or product, but educating the consumer on how to use it and how it might be beneficial, and some of the companies that are maybe using that approach as their way of getting in front of the consumer.
Yeah, I think collaboration is key in those things. So, for instance, I'll just use my own organization, Supernova. We do a lot of outreach to Black and brown communities. We don't necessarily do expungement clinics because that's very labor intensive. So we've partnered with SSDP, and they do expungement clinics, and we just sponsor them. So, sponsoring with other maybe nonprofit organizations or any organizations that are doing educational outreach, and just your logo being on there is brand recognition. It takes five to 7 times for someone to see your logo in order for it to really kind of click and resonate with them. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And with that, it's really just a lot about collaborating with other folks. You don't have the bandwidth to do certain things. You collaborate with someone that can.
And all of our top brands at River do that. I mean, they're doing that. They're going out and promoting the benefits of their products with the retailers alongside our sales team. So
Yeah, and
I hope they are. Are they doing that? with
And
you?
get on boards.
Yeah, something that I've seen be very effective in that regard is, supporting the community, holding it up, being a part of it, and participating, right? The most successful brands that I've seen to date are the ones who have invested the most in supporting in hidden ways, right? Helping other people carry boxes, helping companies use their license when they were going out of business, housing people during the fires. This is not things that hit the news headlights, but are brand equity and building within the community. Like building up your social equity is a very real thing here, and the industry is still cottage enough where that has a ton of value.
And I would just to add to that, get on nonprofit boards in your community. We're not seeing enough people in the cannabis industry having a voice in powerful boards. I believe there's a lot of nonprofits that could use more education, and there's not even the thought of a cannabis industry having a seat at the table. We have banking, we have a lot of big health professionals, we have electeds, we have people in different industries. Sit on boards, be a voice. I work a lot in food and agriculture. We were just doing this huge event called Women in Ag, and I was so disappointed that there was no one represented in cannabis. How is that even possible? That we're having a legal environment here where people are growing something, and that there was not one woman in cannabis. So please sit at the table, please make sure that you're on nonprofit boards, even outside your industry. You know, it's awesome. It's a great way for you to show that there's brand equity and that you're also making a difference.
And get on your local chamber
Yes,
of commerce.
absolutely.
I mean, we're an economic powerhouse. We're bringing tax revenue to the door for these cities
yes.
and for the state. We'll bring more eventually to the state. That's been a whole nother issue, but we are really an economic powerhouse, and this, cities are looking to us for revenue. They're struggling. All these cities are struggling. They have pension debt. They have all sorts of debt. They're looking at the cannabis industry to kind of help solve those problems. So we do have some power when we come to those tables.
Yeah, absolutely. Elise?
Hey, everybody. I also do consulting around branding and packaging work. So I wanted to ask each panelist, just real quick, can you name or think of one brand besides your own that you love the design, you think the branding is on point, something that's really sharp and that stands out to you in today's market?
In cannabis, I think Broccoli Magazine is doing an amazing job. I think it's beautifully designed. It talks to me. I love lifestyle brands. I love kinfolk. I love great design. And I think Broccoli Magazine is doing a great job. The people that are advertising in Broccoli Magazine are doing a great job. From a product standpoint, I think Bebo's doing a great job. Bloom Farms does a great job for multiple reasons. Great packaging, great design, but even better transparency in their storytelling. I feel like I know the cultivators. I feel like I know the farmers, and they're doing a great job through social media.
I think I'd say Dosis has done a really good job of spanning people that are not in the industry, getting them to understand the value of the brand. And then also, there's a lot of brands that make a lot of noise but don't have the sales that really follow on being on existing. They do, and so I think that'd be one that I'd call out.
I have to be a fangirl to you and say Big Pete's Treats. Big Pete's Treats website just blew me away. It's amazing. So awesome. And really the story and what Big Pete's Treats has been doing over the years. They participate very heavily within Santa Cruz community. They do a lot of beach cleanups. They work with the veterans in the area and the Santa Cruz Veterans Alliance. So, I have so much respect for Big Pete's Treats. I think they're doing an amazing job.
I think Flo Kana is doing a great job. I think their storytelling is great. I think their message is great. I think the designs are great. I agree with Dosist. I'm a simple man. I like the clean lines. I like minimalism. I think they're doing great in terms of their packaging and their design. I don't necessarily like to be told how much I should be consuming for the dose part of it with the vibration, but that's just my personal opinion. Sometimes I like to take a smaller or a bigger, and I don't like to be told, you need to be doing this much because each person is different. But their packaging is outstanding. And I really like what they're doing with trying to push sustainability and recycling, how they have the drop stations and the dispensaries. I think that's really cool too.
I'm going to use two brands that River carries, Lowell's and Utopia. I think they're all doing a great brand, especially Utopia on, the community benefits, once again, based out of Santa Cruz. They're just a really great company, really great people. So is Lowell's. I think they're killing it. There's other brands out there like Candescid and stuff that I feel are doing really well. So kudos to them. We need more of those.
Yeah, and I think for me, it would have to be Apothecana. From a lotion side, I think their aesthetic and their company angle and mission is one that really resonates with us and a lot of people in our kind of world. And on the other end, from a flower product, I think Henry's and their story and their packaging and the way their employees and the way they talk about their brand, their language is something that they really have dialed in, I think. Yeah. We have time for one more question? No? Okay, well, thank you guys so much. It's been great. We're going to hop over here, so if you have anything else you want to talk, please let us know.